Okay, so what we're going to do here today is just give you an idea of our expectations of sketchbooks, is the process of sketching and what constitutes sketching at an honours degree level. This is one by Georgia Markham from this year's show, and we just feel it's a really good example and a good benchmark to put yourselves against over the year. If you want to know what a first class honours degree looks like in a design sketchbook, this is what it is. Okay, so we're just going to flick through. This is sketchbook 1, and we've a series of sketchbooks. I have Brian here with me today as well. So what we're going to do is just talk through different stuff as it appears on the page, and we'll flick through and you get an idea. Okay, so I suppose the first thing that I'm going to say is
it's going.
That the sketchbook is not only about drawing pictures. We've said that to you from day one. And when you come into fourth year, you're going to start looking at lots and lots of different types of problem solving and working through your ideas and working through your thoughts and getting stuff down. Those are the types of stuff that needs to be sketched out. Get those ideas down on the page right from the beginning.
Okay, what's nice here as well, even with that opening page, is that the first thing that the sketchbook does is orientate the reader as to what they can expect within their sketchbook. Okay, and here we have, rather than just writing out the problems, we have them illustrated, and we have a nice diagram here that shows the kind of development of thinking as we go through, and that becomes a constant as we go through the sketchbook.
Okay, also you're starting to see sketchwork starting to appear in on the drawings as well, so you're starting to visualize that problem. But also note we have users right from the get-go. Okay, so this is Georgia trying to work out the problems that she wants to do a little bit of research in and kind of get an idea of the two areas. So as you progress, we've gone from 5 problem areas down to 2 problem proposals. Okay, again, spelling it out, and starting first appearance of a hypothesis starts appearing. That's useful to have. Okay, so then to formalize this in a presentation, you jump from your sketchbook into presentations in a classroom, which might be an assessment, might be a design review, or might be just a feedback session, where you then go into PowerPoint or Illustrator and you develop these visuals. Now, these visuals are as important in your sketchbook as the initial sketchbook, because it gives a good kind of little pinpoints to signpost us along a way of the process. So again, that was the first one she did, and this was the next one, proposal 2. And this ended up being our project. It should be possible to design a solution to assist professional dog groomers when working in the saloon.
And again, so the
actually,
digital,
it's not a saloon, it's a salon.
The digital outputs here are included within the workflow of the sketchbook. So don't think your sketchbook, your fourth year sketchbook, doesn't exist in isolation. That the digital inputs, the other assets you produce, they belong in your sketchbook, so it reads as a continuous narrative.
Okay, again, one of the methodologies we use are selection matrices, that they are designed to allow us to make decisions and justify those decisions. So you're setting up your criteria against your different proposals, and you're weighting each of those depending on what you found out. And it just helps you make those decisions as you go along. Again, very important to include them in your sketchbook. So again, the beginning to define the problem. And this all starts linking back into your research poster that you'll be doing later on, where we start looking for statistical information rather than your own opinion. Okay, again, we're jumping into the area now. She knows she's working in the whole area of dog grooming, but now she's kind of at that pointy end of the triangle and she wants to broaden it out again. So throwing down what she understands about this problem and framing the stuff that's in her head down on a sheet. Okay, and this can go on over a couple of pages. So you can imagine now we're probably about 20 pages into our sketchbook and we still haven't really started sketching product. So she's framing out and planning her research. Who's she going to talk to? Where is she going to need to do interviews? All that stuff like that. So who are the stakeholders involved?
And the use here of a kind of spatial arrangement of the ideas, the use of color coding, and the look of a hand worked mind map shows that the mind map is not getting in the way. The software is not getting in the way of the process.
Okay, and again, bringing that back into other deliverables for other subjects where all that information is visualized. Again, it shows the process of where you need to be going with this. Again, getting an idea of the interviews and work that's going to be carried out, and then jumping into the stuff which is your field trips. And again, recording this. Now, yes, you're going to have deliverables for your applied human factors or your human-centered design module, and for your product design innovation module, and for your visual communication. They all fit into your sketchbook. The sketchbook is the glue that holds all these modules together. Again, just some good examples of different field trips and testing and research that was undertaken as part of this project. Okay. You can see we're up to about 4 different places that has been visited. And then doing a survey, again, it's very easy to just start throwing print-offs onto this, but really capturing it in a sketchbook of how important it is. And from that, we can then look at trying to propose 5 directions within that area. And again, one thing that we always try and get people to do is to actually visualize these problems out. So you can see now, it's what we try and get you to concentrate on is the narrative within the problem, not hitting it with loads of text. So can putting a few sketches down allow us to really capture what the problems are?
Okay, so you could spend a couple of paragraphs describing this, or you could just put one image in. So it kind of captures it immediately. I don't have to read it. I can just see immediately what the issues are being flagged.
Okay, and what I'd just like to point out on this is all of her own hand. This isn't just taking images from the internet, and that's really, really important because it really gets you focused in on the project. Okay, so this leads us, if you want a time frame on it, this leads us from September to about the end of October, what we're at here at the moment. And what she ends up with is her hypothesis. It should be possible to design a product that will help dog owners groom their dogs from home. So you can see how that's changed from the initial one based on the research that she found. I think also we always say that a good image is priceless, and it kind of gives us an idea of the project right from the offset. So again, now that we've decided on the project, it's back into what's going on in our heads. What are we trying to sort out? And it's the first time that we're really beginning to sketch ideas.
Can you go back to that one?
Yeah. Okay.
So between these 2 pages here, we see that, okay, the neatness has dropped off as we go from this page to this page. But we start seeing ideas start to form, and often it's difficult to have ideas and neatness at the same time. So this is a really kind of a pure kind of outflowing of ideas, and that's really, really important to capture it in your sketchbook. Your sketchbook isn't just a showplace for all of your nicely delivered line work and your nicely delivered renders. This is showing the idea and where they're coming from, and we start to see these ideas get traced through the whole project.
Okay, and again, just coming to the end of this sketchbook. Again, this is where we get to see where the user is involved in this process and the key touch points that are involved, the key products that might be associated with this whole area that might need to be looked at and researched. And again, just framing of what needs to happen when washing from home. Okay, so that concludes sketchbook number 1. As I say, that's brought us from September up to the end of October. Now, sketchbook number 2. And again, this is where we always say at the start of the year, your sketchbooks should be huge. It isn't a case of handing in a sketchbook at the end of the year of 20 pages. That's just not cutting it. You can't just design a product in that little amount of space. So really, this is about recording the process that's undertaken. So again, we start off sketchbook number 2 with a screening matrix. Does she have a heading on it? No. So it's a screening matrix, and she's looking into her concept generation now. So this is between this bit and this sketchbook and the previous sketchbook, you would have had your research poster. Then you're into your concept sketching. Okay? And again, now we're into this idea of throwing out our ideas. Now, what I want you to look at as we flick through all these pages and into the next couple of sketchbooks is how the sketching improves as we go along. The more you sketch, the better it gets, the more confident you get with it. So this is usually what happens when students jump into their sketchbook and their concepts. They are a bit tentative. They want to draw down the perfect solution really quickly rather than being quick and just going for it. So at this stage, we don't mind it being messy. We just need to see the process that you're looking through all the different areas. Okay, so again, first point that we get this notion of a stackable product.
Nice use of an orthographic view here. That's going to explain a concept a lot easier than trying to do a perspective view, a very efficient use. And down here we're using section view. So it's using the skills that we've been using from technical drawing to start illustrating out the product. And you see, not so much with this page, but on the previous page, copious notes explaining out and kind of talking back to yourself about how the concept's going to work.
Okay, and again, what George has done really well here is this notion of lifting certain images up off the page that she feels that are important, but also breaking down exactly what is each area is doing. The other thing I just want to focus you in on here is something I get students to do in 4th year, and that is draw a little column down the right hand side of the page and break it into 3. One of the hardest things to do is when you open up that blank page and you have to sketch something down, but you don't know what you want to sketch. Start off with this. And the first section is always on your focus for this particular sketch sheet. What do you want to look at on this sheet? Because if you're left with a blank sheet, you're trying to do everything and you end up doing nothing. So break it down. What am I going to look at on this sheet? As you're going through the sheet and getting to the end of the sheet, you should be putting in here points of note. What is of interest to you on this page? What has occurred to you while you're drawing this page? And at the bottom then, what we like you to do is, based on these observations, what is actionable from this page? That will then lead into what is going to be the focus of your next sheets.
Now, and on that page and on this page, they're reasonably good drawings. They're not presentation drawings by any stretch of the imagination, but they are capturing the key concepts, and they're drawings that are serving the purpose of exploring out the idea, and that's what's really important. The drawing is fit for purpose. It explores out the idea. It communicates the concept.
Okay. And immediately now you can see that the sketchwork is starting to get a little bit better. The quality of line is improving. The images are jumping out. But also look at the flow of the sketching happening out. We're getting orthographic views mixed with the three-dimensional views. And it's starting to get to a point where you can see this student really beginning to understand the product in 3 dimensions and the possibilities that go along with it. Okay. Looking at some finer detail on your product. And again, first time that we get it, where we're getting into overall dimensions, which you will find at the time will bring us towards product architecture, but also this will inform the first sketch models of this product down in the workshop.
Yeah, and we're into pre-engineering drawings here. You can see from having pre-engineering drawings like this, the start of your SolidWorks is going to be so much easier because you know what you're dealing with.
Okay, this is what we refer to as a morphology chart, and again, this is the different areas like the holders, the handles, the storage, and she's looking at the different options. So if you're trying to come up with concepts, this is great because you can actually go, well, I'm going to go with this form, this kind of storage, these handles, this holder, and this kind of a bed unit, and see how they all fit together into a concept. So it's a really great way of coming up with lots of concepts very, very quickly. Again, you can see the level of complexity starting to come into it, and starting to think of the product as a whole.
Sketchwork is starting to improve because, of course, this isn't the first time now that she's drawn these artifacts. And these artifacts are, and this is where what's great in a sketchbook. These artifacts are rough, they're hairy, but they're capturing concepts, they're figuring stuff out, and it shows a kind of a thoroughness within the sketchbook. And your sketchbook is a kind of, sketchbook should capture the whole story, and it's kind of the opposite of portfolio. And portfolio is carefully curated, carefully selected, whereas sketchwork, if there's only one item on this page, it's the value. And maybe it's, if we go back to this one, Hilary, there was a consideration of whether we used a scissors jack to raise and lower. So that idea was kind of explored out. It was later rejected, but it's explored out in this page. So we can see that the consideration going in for various different elements. And that can be very important when you're working through with a client, to show that you've actually considered all the options in the development.
Okay, so I'm just going to, what Brian has said is really interesting there, because you can see a lot of this stuff is being thought out and being considered. And the one thing that we said about Georgia was that through her sketchbook, when we were in talking to her about her project, we might suggest something and she would go off and explore it. Might be just for a page or two. But then the next time we went to talk to her, she'd say, well, listen, I looked at that. Here are my sketches. This is what I thought about. And it raised these problems. So I don't think I'm going to go with that. So for us, that's brilliant, because it shows that the student is really beginning to understand the needs of the product. Okay? So again, sketching is starting to get a little bit more fluid now, and the form generation is starting to come into it more. Okay, down to minor details on the product.
Here we see the scissor jack idea getting explored out again.
Again, this concertina effect happening as well with the top of it. Okay, so this became the point, I would say, where George's product really started to come together around form, where she had her idea of this stacking approach. She had the parts that went with it, parts that sat into a bath, how to secure the dog. And you'll see that she then took that idea and really started to build on it, looking at how the leg system will work. These orthographic side views are fantastic. If you're working out slight details, that sketch here, these series of 3 sketches, show us exactly the functionality of that product, and it really brings it to life.
So we have here a leg that folds away, folds open, and then locks when it gets into the over the top position. And it's explored out very efficiently. And here in these few pages, we're starting to get the first glimpse of product, of how the product will end up looking. But what's invaluable here is the process doesn't stop at this point. We're getting the first glimpses of some of the product, but the student doesn't say, okay, here we go, this will do, let's design that. No, we keep exploring what the options are, and we keep working through the options to see how the overall form can develop and improve.
So again, you can see it down here. We've gone from 2 solid legs now to some bit of bent tubular steel. And again, it's changed the way she's sketching her project. And that's essential, because if you're designing something in fabricated steel or bent tubes or in rotor molding or injection molding, it needs to have the style of that manufacturing about it, so we can begin to communicate it better. Okay, again, stuff I like on this as well. Humans are great to see in it, but even very quickly, once you get the proportionality to human right, they can be drawn down very, very quickly, that you're not wasting time drawing pictures. Okay, again, really starting to see the consideration going into this different parts of this product. Okay. The other thing that I like about George's sketchwork is that the dog is present in a lot of the sheets. So it's not like she's forgetting who's actually using these products, who actually has to interact with these products. But again, looking at this whole notion of shower hoses and so on, of what can be done. Again, we're really at concept stage. She's not just coming up with an idea and driving on with it. It's more about, let's explore all the options that I have open to me here, and we'll actually decide which is the best way forward. And that usually happens in consultation with the student and staff members over a couple of weeks, that they're not isolated, and one staff member is going to come in and suggest one thing, another staff member might suggest something else. It's up to the student to explore it and then come back with the answers. What the lecturers are telling you will be from years of experience, but it won't be the right answer, and they're not going to give you the answer. They'll give you prompts and guide you, but it's up to you then to explore it and see, does that have any benefits to you and your project?
And it's really worthy of note that the vast majority of these sketches don't make the cut and don't make it into the design. I think that's really important to kind of know that we're not on a linear process here. There's huge elements of these that are decided that are outside the scope of the project, and then there's solutions that are drafted out here that never make it anywhere near the final design. Even ones that have been explored continuously, like the scissor jack idea, that doesn't feature in the final design because there was issues raised with it. But if you've hitched your wagon to a scissors jack and you've got no other design options available to you, you're going to end up with something with a scissors jack.
Okay, so you can see now Georgia is really getting to a point where she's using up all her concepts, and she's getting to a point going, actually, I need to kind of nail this down now. Where is this project going? What is it going to be doing? And deciding then what the overall heights or widths and functionality of this product is, and generally what we would refer to as the product architecture of the project.
This is actually what we're looking here is the space envelope, the environmental space envelope into which the product needs to sit. So there's no point in designing a product that you're going to shower your dog in if it doesn't fit in the average person's shower.
Okay. So again, how those sizes relate to sizes of existing products. Okay, and that brings us then to the end of the concept phases. So again, we must be 70, 80 pages into our project, and we now have come up with our concepts. So the next phase is really getting into that area of proof of concept and into design development. So again, this is sketchbook number 3, but not only that, sketchbook number 3, part 1. So again, what have we got? A key research. So this is her telling us where her ideas come from and justifying the decisions that have been made along the way. So one of the things that we always ask for at the end of the year is, does your research, so this is her design brief, does your research actually get carried through into your final design? If so, how so? Okay, mood boards, style boards. You won't necessarily be asked to do these in your honours degree project, but it's expected.
So yeah, so we've got your classic 3 of mood board, benchmark board, and style tile. We'll go back to this one, a style board. And these are all really usable motifs, and they get used throughout the project and to inform the design. And so this is research, but this is the visual research. These are the things that are the cues that are going to inform our design aesthetic.
Okay. Form benchmarking. And actually, when you look at some of these and you look at George's final design, you can actually see that she's very much used her graphics boards as cues.
This is important as well. This is the setting. Will the product look in place in this setting? But you have to define what's that setting look like. So this goes a long way to defining the aesthetic of your product.
Again, the environment. And I think this is what's really interesting about this as well is pitching this environment right. If you're aiming this at a certain demographic or a certain gender, what kind of place are they going to be living in? That is, there's no point in you going back to your student accommodation to take a photograph of your bathroom or shower. If in fact that the demographic you're selling this to might be a female in their mid-40s with a very high amount of expendable income, with a big house, 3 children, and likes the odd bit of Scandinavian design thrown in around her. That's very different. So you need to be considerate about what you're doing. Okay? Now, again, this is really important. This is stakeholder mapping. Looking at the breeds of dogs that she's looking at. So she was looking at small dogs, but it's not enough to just say, I'm aiming at this at a small dog. Give us an idea of the types of dogs that we're talking about. And what George actually did was talked about the statistics of which are the most owned dogs in these breeds nationally. Okay, so again now we're starting to look at our concepts, and this is the first time in George's project where we actually see the end concept. Now obviously it gets developed a whole pile more from this, but we know where this has come from previous pages. It mightn't have looked like this, but it's starting to appear, it's evolved. Again, as Brian talked about earlier, the cross-sectional views really begin to tell us about the product.
And then simple things like color swatches. So you know what markers you're going to be using later on.
Okay. So, again, what you'll begin to notice is the sketch work is really improving. The line weight is improving. The level of detail and the attention to detail in here. But look at this, questions on the project. One thing that we will always say about Georgia was when you went into the 4th year studio and said, Georgia, do you want to talk with me? She'd go, yes, I have a question. And her sketchbook would open and there would be the questions written out that she was going to ask me, and there might be different questions that she was going to ask Brian or anybody else during the stage of that week, because they were stuff that she needed to work through. Don't call us over to say, I need to ask you questions, and just randomly start trying to pull questions out of your head. Be prepared. Okay, storyboard. Always great to begin communicating where the functionality of product is, but also it affords you the opportunity to really find the key interaction touch points of your product, which will then lead on to the styling options. I also like the real monochrome rendering, just using the bit of shade to lift this sheet out. Okay, just talked about it there, touch point maps, and you'll end up doing this in your human-centered design module, where you're beginning to pick out, well, where are humans or where are the animals actually interacting with this product. Okay. Again, you can see the style is coming through. Now, when you start sketching like this, you're beginning to look at how best to manufacture this product. And this is where we start seeing stuff like draft angles and release angles starting to appear on the product, that you kind of go, I can produce this. This is going to be a little bit more difficult, or they will use different methods of manufacture. But once you know what method of manufacture you're going to go for, that affords you the opportunity to sketch and design in that way.
And sketching and designing in this fashion means that your SolidWorks and your actual engineering of the part is going to be so much more straightforward, because you already have that understanding.
Okay, user requirements. Test rig map. So again, down to the workshop. We're in around January, February here now, and you're starting to get to that stage of, I need to get down to the workshop and see this thing. So first thing she did was she used cardboard and brought those sheets of cardboard home to get a good idea of floor pans with an actual dog. But this is really important. these photographs of your testing coming into your sketchbook and then using them to map your thought process behind the project is really, really useful. But it's also extremely good at communicating the testing that you've done. So you can see here, all these photographs, just import them in, stick them in, and sketch around them. Okay? Really, really lovely sheets here. Look at here.
Sorry, you see scale.
Not only, I just go back here, look. This is a model that Georgia built down in the workshop that took her about a half an hour to build. It's a box to try out different heights in the shower and to see about drainage. It worked a treat. The box was ruined. She used MDF. The box was ruined afterwards, but it served its purpose. She was able to make decisions from it. Again, now looking at it as a grooming table, how does that work? Where could it be positioned?
So it's important as well with your sketch work and with your prototypes that you have a clear idea of what is the function of this prototype, what is the function of this sketch.
Okay, and again, these sketch models aren't pretty, but they're not meant to be. They're meant to be functional. And again, look up, we're talking about how do we extract hair from it. So we're now applying vacuums. And again.
Now this is interesting. Look, we're talking about the different forms of the roll lip and how these different forms of roll lip will be achieved. And that's indicative of different processes that we're using in the manufacture.
Okay, and again, now you can see from that level of detailing and design, especially down here, that it's lending itself to the form. This is the old Dieter Rams one of form follows function. And we can see as we've gone through this project that the form of this project is starting to emerge because the functionality is being decided upon. But again, as I said, testing just doesn't happen of a wet Thursday in February. It continues on, and the more decisions you make, the more models you will need to make in order to answer key decisions at key times. But it's being proactive and just going out about doing it. Okay. Again, some fantastic research, some great testing. But I like the way it's been recorded in the sketchbook. Okay, look at the models all beginning to change, getting a little bit bigger. So she's really making decisions around the height, how to restrain the dog, and building these rigs to do that. Okay, so you can see now her sketch modeling is starting to evolve. The product's becoming a lot more functional. But on the back of that, look at the detail that's starting now to creep into our final design based on those decisions being made through model making. Okay. Another key. Do you want to take this one, Brian, about stock?
Yeah. So this is a good use of stock componentry. So instead of designing something up from scratch, we had a look at different stock components that we could use from the likes of suppliers like RS. And seeing these problems where if you're looking at a handle that needs to fold out of the way and then fold up and lock, you know that there's multiple examples of that out there in products. So find how it's solved in that product and then use it within your own product rather than spending a lot of time designing up an answer to a question that's already been answered.
Okay. And again, I remember actually sitting down talking to Georgia around this whole area of how we get this lever arm to lock. And I remember I gave her one idea, Brian gave her another idea, and I think Brian Leach gave her a third idea. And what was great was she went off and explored all three of them and came back to us with the solution she felt, actually this fits with my product the best. Okay, so again, instead of having to draw the lead out, again, just that image imported in gives us a real feel for what we need.
Again, integrating the work coming out of SolidWorks into the sketchwork. So we can see the sketchwork informing the SolidWorks and the SolidWorks informing the sketchwork. And that back and forth between your 3D, your 2D, between your engineering and your aesthetic should start to really happen here. And now we're getting into detail about how this thing will pop out of one position and lock into the other position. And in terms of reading this, it's clear to me what type of a design that is. A spring loaded with a detent that's holding a tubular structure in position, and you start to recognize that as a solution.
Okay, but not only that, then look at other options where you're not looking at that D-ring on it. Again, how we're going to be carrying it around. But again, not just settling in on one idea, really exploring it out. Now's the time to do that. Okay, look again, bit of user testing. These inform this, as Brian was saying, and this informs this. Okay.
And nice bit of body storming here. So a nice bit of miming out the activity, going through it, and then using your colleagues down in the workshop to go through these ideas and get some photographs of the different positions that people are in when they're trying to use the equipment. You know, and also modeling some of the bad behaviors. So here we have, you know, we can predict that somebody's going to lift this, no knees, loads of back. So it's worth looking at both the wanted and the unwanted behaviors in some sort of body storming or miming out the workflow.
Okay, and again, you can see now informing best solution as we're going through, but also looking for comfort.
Inclusion of section views.
And not only, just got back there, not only just doing the section view, but how that then relates to the product. It really is nice. Again, we're benchmarking. Okay, we've got our ideas. Now we're going into this notion of the sleeping area. And these are the benchmarks that she's taken out, probably appeared earlier on in our benchmark boards. Now she needs them, bring them in.
And we need a bit more detail, so let's get some more benchmarks.
Do you notice the way that George has used this blue throughout all her sketching? It's really just two colours, that blue and a light shade of grey on the odd occasion as well. Really brings the whole sketchbook together. Now, great. This is our base parts are starting to appear now in SolidWorks. We're into probably late February now, and this is where we should be in late February, where base parts are being pulled into SolidWorks. Now, there's a danger here that happens with a lot of students is they jump into SolidWorks and the sketchbook gets left behind.
Never see them again.
And we never see it again. And that's one thing that the externs will always look up. Well, they need to be recording down the step-by-step process that they're going through. So this is a great way of doing it. Take your images, print them out, stick them into your sketchbook, and then sketch your problem solving around it.
Okay, and we start to see, I want to draw attention to this, we start to see a little bit of design for manufacture where instead of using multiple components here, we can simplify it, and we start to look at you know, integrating the handle into the overall form. But that handle is in the wrong position, and then we see an iteration of that where the handle bumps up to accommodate that position, or we take it into a deeper position on here. So there's multiple considerations of that handle position happening in this page. And it's these details that make the difference between the design looking well and the design looking poorly.
Yeah, and again, it's not enough to just throw the cushion into it. How's it being attached into the actual system?
And without having to kill themselves rendering, the student quite clearly illustrates what materials they're going to be using. So, you know, rendering a felt material, very enjoyable afternoon, but is it a valuable use of your time?
Okay. And again, just looking at extraction holes. Again, bringing in the benchmarks. So how can you kind of channel water away? Where does the water go to? And again, I remember this and lots of time spent agonizing over the best way of doing this. And again, you can see it wasn't just one solution, lots of different stuff. But you can start seeing stuff coming back in. It's not like she just hits an idea and then puts that to bed. It's how they're all working together.
And sometimes it goes backwards. Sometimes we see reintroduction of ideas and they're not the best idea, but it's gone backwards. It started considering those ideas again. And some of them get refined and make it through. Others come back out of the design again.
Yeah.
So there's not this linearity to it.
The level of detail going on in here is fantastic. It's showing actuation, it's showing function, but it's also showing process as well. And it's really, this is a joy to behold. Okay. Really communicating out, but a lot of it is not to communicate to other people. It's about her understanding what she needs to do in the different formats that are beginning to appear. Okay, looking at internal details now. So we're progressing into probably mid to late March now. But you can see again, stock pieces. We don't need to be redesigning everything. But as I said from the beginning of this project, the sketching improved as we go through, but you can see now what are we, probably about 150 pages in, and the level of sketching almost becomes fluid, natural. She's not even thinking about it. Okay, look at these levels of detail are great. Okay, so the one thing we always look for in this phase is for students to really drive on and take ownership for their project. So obviously we're still not near the end. We've one more sketchbook to do. Okay, so this is our last sketchbook. So sketchbook number 3, part 2. And again, this will show the drive into the end of the project. Now, this is the phase where all the serious groundwork has been done on your project. You know the functionality, you know how it's going to be manufactured, you know the materials, you know aesthetically how it's going to be looked. Now's the point where some students will go, Grant, I've done enough, I'm just going to concentrate on my boards and my model and all that now and get them over the line, almost in a kind of a hurdle jumping way. Or do you drive on and you make every single part of this product sing? So let's flip through and see where we are. So again, continuing on with the sketch modeling. This is well into March now, and you can still see she's still making models and trying them out. So we're prototyping stuff here, where she's grooming her dog, hairdryer attached to see if we can take hairs away. Again, SolidWorks starting to appear in. But look at, we've now a combination of photographs, SolidWorks and sketching and decision making all happening on the one page. This is great. Okay, looking at surfaces, cleaning up.
Thinking about material selection.
Different textures.
Different cross sections. Things are starting to look like injection molding parts.
Okay. The level of detail is starting to appear on this. The one thing I always say about a student when you get to the end of the year is I can ask them any question about their project and they will be able to give me a detailed answer. I know that if I ask this student about this piece, there will be no confusion. They would understand what they're talking about. But again, test modeling done, prototyping, excellent stuff. Flexigrommets, again, photograph, stick them in. So instead of reinventing the wheel, take them out. And you can see this now all starting to happen. She understands what her product is. Now she's looking for different ways or different products that can be added onto her product that saves her the trouble of designing it. But they must be sympathetic to what she wants to design. So in other words, it's not about starting off with, I'm going to make a product out of these parts. It's about going to try and find the parts that make her product.
And here's boxes for carrying kit.
Okay. And again, starts off very square, thinking of the functionality, but now when it starts looking about if it goes into the product, how is it going to be secured in the product? How is it locking in place? And there's a couple of sketches I know where she shows this clip mechanism going on and using integral hinges as part of that process. So you can see once the decision is made on the manufacturing type, the sketching follows suit. Okay, so you can see the level of detail that's beginning to appear. I think Bernie used the phrase this year, the FID approach. I'm not going to tell you what FID is, ask Bernie. So human-centered design, categorization. So product interaction, the online and offline use, and again we go through that. This is all stuff that defined what type of testing needed to be done. And again, human testing and modeling. This really just is an overview of what happened during her project. So it's really bringing it all together. Okay, so you can see combinations of sketching, combinations of photographs, SolidWorks starting to appear as well. Lots of great testing to back up her designs. Okay, so these are actually great benchmarks for your applied human factors submissions during the year. But this is great. User feedback,